Welcome to this talk on UnBias AI for Decision Makers, a critical systems thinking toolkit. My name is Ansgar Kuhne. I am a global AI ethics and regulatory leader at EY and a senior research fellow at the University of Nottingham. Well, chess, Go, and Jeopardy playing AI were uncontroversial headline-grabbing demonstrations of the potential capabilities of AI, its application to real-world use cases such as high school grades or job applicant assessments, face recognition, and predictive policing have made headlines of an altogether different kind. Controversy of the use of AI for applications with real impact and consequences has led to a lot of concern over the adequacy of existing legislation and regulatory oversight, as well as lack of clear standards to define best practice. This in turn has led to the establishing of many high-level expert groups in academia, in industry, and at government and intergovernmental levels, resulting in the publication of a plethora of AI principles in 2019 alone. This mapping of AI principles that was done by the Berkman Klein Institute, for instance, highlights the high level of similarity between the various published AI principles. Um, as an example, let's take a closer look at the OECD AI principles that were also adopted by the G20, and which are summarized as follows. AI should promote inclusive growth, sustainable development and well-being, human-centered values and fairness, transparency and explainability, robustness, security and safety, and accountability. The general weakness of all of these AI principles, however, is that their high-level nature means they lack implementational detail. Critiques such as how should the impact of an AI application on well-being be measured? How does what does human-centered mean in the context of smart traffic lights, a helpline chatbot, or medical care triage recommendation systems? How much transparency is enough and what kind of explainability is relevant? Robustness to what kind of perturbations? Whose safety should be prioritized in an autonomous vehicle, passenger or pedestrian? Where does accountability lie and how does this relate to liability when third-party components are used? Furthermore, who is responsible for implementation and oversight of these principles? One issue is that AI applications are typically components within larger systems and processes that require a holistic perspective to truly appreciate where the benefits and risks of using the AI are. Responsible development and use of AI technology therefore involves many stakeholders within an organization. As shown here, various different types of AI systems in computer vision, robotics, etc., are used in contexts as, for instance, in the example of AI for manufacturing, which means you have AI being integrated into production platforms, assembly lines, you have different types of robotics being used, different components that all interact with each other, and each of these brings with them their own issues, their own requirements for oversight, and their own team of people who are specialized in this part of the organization. All of these somehow need to cooperate in order to establish the best way of implementing these AI principles. The UnBias AI for Decision Makers toolkit was designed to help exploring and tracing the impact and implications of AI systems for organizations. It facilitates the communication between the various parties involved and the assessment of how the AI application aligns with the organization's mission, vision, and values across business structures and operations. The toolkit consists of an assessment canvas to record the problems the AI systems seek to address and the opportunities, barriers, resources, values, and actions that are identified through the assessment process. It further contains 19 hexagonal cards, to reflect on 19 factors. One ethos and values card in green, 6 operational drivers in blue, and 12 outcome dimensions in red. The cards are arranged in any order to evaluate and assess alignments, misalignments, and the key relationship that links operations and outputs. The cards can be used for planning, designing, and developing an AI system, or post-deployment, they can assist with ongoing monitoring and critical evaluation. The process for using them is designed to map the complexities of AI governance and policies against critical issues such as trust, reliability, quality assurance, due diligence, and ethics. So in the spirit of moving from principles to practice, let's apply the AI for Decision Makers toolkit to a common example. For an example, an AI chatbot for customer engagement, such as call center support. An obvious place to start for a general assessment might be with the business case. What is the business case and value proposition that this AI chatbot would bring? Who benefits from its use? What are the associated costs? How does the AI perform against expectations, internal and external? We can also think of this as the overall strategy behind the introduction of the AI system. So whenever we identify and discuss a relevant factor for this AI application, we can take notes on the canvas about the problems, opportunities, etc. related to this factor. One aspect of strategy is thinking about the value proposition. This suggests that we need to clarify what the values are that our organization actually stands for, which we've captured using the ethos and values card, which reads, what is your organization's ethos? Its mission, vision, values, and ethics. Have you adopted an existing AI ethics framework? How is it being implemented across your operations? How does the AI system integrate and reflect your ethos and values? So these are just some of the framing questions. They're meant to start a conversation. Hopefully the team that is around the table, or in our current environment on the conference call, will engage with these questions and widen them to make them fit within the organization. How are these systems particularly being used? Has the organization highlighted key things that it stands for, that it wants to be able to communicate to any user that's integrating with it? Now, when considering an AI chatbot, our current example, a key driving aspect would also obviously be the people that it is engaging with, the people, the customers, but also the internal people, the people from the call center that are being supported by the chatbot. So the example questions that we bring with the people's card is, who are the stakeholders? To whom do you have a duty of care? Who will be affected by the AI and how? How will their human rights be respected and protected? So what kind of impact might an AI chatbot have on the outcomes of our business strategy and the internal and external stakeholders of our organization, those stakeholders that we've discussed and identified when considering the people's card? One dimension to consider might be the impact on reputation. So what impacts, positive and negative, could AI have on the brand and reputation of the organization? How will this be communicated? How trusted is the AI solution? Does it operate consistently in line with your organization's reputation? Again, these are just starter questions to initiate conversation. As well as performing chatbot, a well-performing chatbot can improve the efficiency with which we serve customers and therefore improve our reputation. Failing system, however, such as inability to understand certain people, like different accents, or understand certain types of questions that are maybe formulated in a non-conventional way, could have negative consequences for the reputation of the organization, bringing people to the wrong sort of path within the decision tree, or guiding them to the wrong kinds of people within the call center, or just frustrating people by not being able to communicate and get their issues across. So this clearly relates to questions about accuracy of the system. How good is the system in actually performing the task of hearing what people are saying and responding to that? Okay, so accuracy is another issue. In addition to accuracy, an aspect that comes out of this kind of interaction is the well-being of our customers and of our helpline support staff. If people are frustrated with it, then that diminishes their well-being. It also means that once they do get to the people, the humans within the helpline, their interaction will be different because of just the frustrations they've built up. So we need to think about, how does the system, when it's not performing well, how does it impact the well-being of both the customers and the people within our organization? The accuracy, in turn, depends on technology choices that are being made. So far, we haven't actually specified which type of AI is going to be used in this chatbot. Different kinds of technology will bring with them different kinds of advantages and disadvantages. For instance, if we're using a machine learning approach, we might require a lot of data in order to be able to drive this, which is another factor that would need to be considered. The data. Where are we going to get this data? How are we going to make sure the data isn't biased? How are we going to make sure that the privacy of anybody engaging with this system is properly respected? I mean, privacy is, of course, top of a lot of people's thinking when it comes to engaging with online systems. Not the least because of the recent discussions around the introduction of the GDPR, the EU's General Data Protection Regulation. So related to privacy, clearly we have regulatory requirements, which means a need to think about compliance. How are you going to do compliance, which potentially is going to involve other people within the organization? This, in turn, has implications for the number of people that are involved, the kinds of systems that can be used. In the interest of time, I will stop here. Even at this stage, we can see the gradual mapping of the various factors that all need to be considered as part of the overall system, and the implications from introducing an AI chatbot. And hopefully it will be clear that a little bit how, just by using this system and having some prompts in place, it can help to guide the thinking to realize other aspects that perhaps in a straightforward approach to trying to address, when we introduce an AI chatbot, what are the key issues we need to think about. Perhaps an initial thinking might not have flagged up questions around well-being, or might not have flagged up certain aspects around thinking of the kinds of people that need to be engaged with. So the idea really of the toolkit is to help this thinking to widen towards a more systems level conceptualization of the issues. So each of the cards we've put down comes with questions on its reverse to stimulate thinking about the issues that are associated with it, similar to the ones that I read out for the first couple of cards. And based on these questions, and more importantly, on the discussion arising in the group that is doing this exercise together, notes are generated for each factor to map the associated problems, opportunities, barriers, resources, values, and actions that need to be taken. The UnBias AI for Decision Makers toolkit was commissioned by EY and is published under Creative Commons license. and available free online as a DIY print and play, and also available to order in a printed version. The UnBias AI for Decision Makers is a spiritual extension of the UnBias awareness cards that were produced as part of the UnBias research project, a research project that had been funded by the EPRSRC and led by the Horizon Institute at the University of Nottingham in collaboration with the universities of Oxford and Edinburgh. The UnBias awareness cards are also published under Creative Commons and are also available free and online. The links to these being provided on this slide. So thank you very much, and I'm open to questions.